Hey guys, it's Paul from Team APS. So this is going to be a deck profile of the dice deck that we used in our recent theme duel of dice roll versus coin flip. It was a lot of fun. A lot of people really liked the duel and they wanted to know what cards we were running. So I figured I'd profile it. I'll also have a profile of the coin deck going up at the same time. So be sure to check this one out as well if you're interested. A couple of quick things just before we get started. First things first, these were designed for theme duels. So with theme duels in the channel, we typically try to make the decks pretty low powered, we kind of focus more on just them being, interactive, having a variety of plays, not sort of like completely shutting the opponent out or anything like that. We want the duelist theme kind of back and forth. And we try to make the decks balanced, which obviously isn't exactly easy to do. I mean, sometimes we'll try to fine tune the decks, but in this case, it's coin versus dice, so a lot of it really is just up to chance. That said, though, there were some specific card choices in here that were made in the interests of like balance and stuff, because these decks aren't exactly evenly matched, so we had to kind of tweak to get it there. But yeah, so both decks, I will say, also had a high-level boss monster and a mid-level boss monster, and the rest were mostly just monsters, spells, and traps. So yeah, we'll start off with Orgoth the Relentless. So this guy is the boss monster of the deck. He's really strong, actually. So takes 2 tributes, but once per turn, you can roll a 6-sided die 3 times, and he gets attack and defense equal to the total times 100 until the end of your opponent's turn. So typically, he's going to be going up to like at least around 3,000, and he could, I guess, get as high as like 4,300. So that's really nice. And then also, if multiple results are the same, you get some extra effects, like not being able to destroy by battle or card effects, or being able to draw multiple cards, or even being able to attack directly. So it's nice. I think that the beefy stats and the kind of useful, powerful effects make this a good boss monster. Also got maximum 6. So he didn't show himself in the theme duel, but yeah, when he's tribute summoned, you just roll a 6-sided die and he gets attack equal to the results times 200. So kind of a weaker, Orgoth the Relentless of sorts, but he can get quite large, so that's pretty nice. Yeah, that's really it. So next we have our lower level monsters, Snipe Hunter. This is kind of the namesake, quintessential dice card. You discard a card, target something in the field, roll a 6-sided die, and if you roll anything but a 1 or a 6, you get to pop the card. This actually, ironically, was pretty useful back in the old days in like decks like Teledat. It was nice. It's a reliable, dark, staple monster. And the chances on this are pretty good. You have a 2/3 chance of getting the card you want popped. And it doesn't actually have a hard once per turn, so as long as you've got discards, you can use it. Next, there's Cuban. So Cuban kind of starts the trend of what you notice in this deck, which is many of the monsters actually have pretty beefy defense. So once per turn, you get to roll a 6-sided die, and while this guy is on the field, neither player gets to normal or special summon monsters with the level as the result. This is an interesting effect because if this thing lasts for multiple turns in the field, you can slowly lock up many different levels. I guess let's say you roll a 4 one time, and then you roll like a 5 the next time, and then a 2. So now like level 4s, 5s, and 2s, none of them can be summoned while he's in the field. It's of course very unreliable. It's a dice roll card, I mean, duh. But the beefy defense actually comes in a lot of handy too. So you can set it, they'll run into it, it'll live, and then it can start using its effect. So that's nice. There's also Roulette Barrel, another beefy defense monster with actually a pretty strong effect. Once per turn, you get to roll a 6-sided die twice, choose one of the results, and destroy a monster in the field whose level is equal to that result. So this is great. You can sort of get rid of cards. Of course, it's all up to chance. You knew what you were asking for, like you click the profile. But yeah, another really big defense monster, and it's a good removal effect, honestly. It's not just when he's summoned, it's once per turn, and you can stay in defense and just pop stuff. That's nice. Next, there's Dice Lops. So this is a kind of newerish dice card. You get to roll a 6-sided die, and if you roll a 1, you look at your opponent's hand and take a card from it. 2, 3, 4, or 5, you discard a card, and then 6, you discard your entire hand. I don't actually love this thing because really it's more like most of the effects hurt you. Only really one of the effects is truly beneficial, so yeah, but it's got decent attack strength, so there's that. And finally, there's Dice Jar, which is kind of the, the meme pick. It's a flip effect monster. Both players roll a 6-sided die. The person with the lowest result takes damage equal to their opponent's result times 500. And if the winner gets a 6, then the loser will take 6,000 points of damage. This thing can be brutal and randomly end games out of nowhere, but you have to watch the video to know exactly how that goes. So yeah, that's it for the monsters. There's no consistency to it. You get what you draw. There's, whatever. That's that. All right, so for the spells, 2 dice to dice. If you were running a dedicated dice deck, you should run 3 copies of this, but we ran 2 because we just didn't want the dice deck to be too consistent, since, as you'll see in the coin deck profile, the coin deck doesn't really have any ways of searching anything. So we didn't want that, we're trying to just keep things balanced. Again, run 3 if you're running this in real life. So you roll a die. If you roll a 1 or a 6, you get to add a dice card from your deck to your hand. And if you don't, then you re-roll the die and apply a different result. So if you get a 1 or a 6 that time, you'll return this card to your hand so you can use it next turn. If you get anything else, then you put it on top of the deck, which isn't quite as useful because it's going to clog up your next draw. But yeah, it's quick play, so that's kind of nice. You might want to use it in your opponent's turn so that when it does get returned to your hand or the top of your deck, you'll be able to use it again a little bit more easily. I don't know. Dangerous Machine type 6. So this is actually a pretty old dice card. It's a continuous spell. During your standby phases, you get to roll a die and get some really crazy effects. Discarding a card, making your opponent discard a card, drawing a card, making your opponent draw a card, destroying one of your opponent's monsters, or of course destroying this card. It's just a lot of fun to have in the field. There's also summon dice, so you pay 1,000 life points, roll a die. This is actually a pretty useful card because unlike most dice cards, all of the effects are pretty beneficial or can be pretty helpful, but you have to be careful because the 5 or 6 effect lets you special summon a level 5 or higher monster from your hand, but if you don't have any, then you just wouldn't get anything. The other effects are pretty useful though. Then there's Dice Foon. So this card is, of course, really strong. You get to roll a 6-sided die. If you get a 2, 3, or 4, you get to pop a spell or trap. If you get a 5, you get to destroy 2 spells or traps. But if you get a 6 or a 1, then you take damage. So, not the best thing, but the coin deck has quite a lot of cards that actually have just continuous stuff, face-up stuff. So if this goes off and you destroy 2 cards, then that was the idea, is that would be really good. Graceful Dice. So this just increases all your monsters' attack by what you roll. It's a quick play spell. It's nice because it actually boosts all of your monsters, so that's useful to have for the turn. Roulette Spider is kind of a BS thing. When your opponent's monster attacks, you get to roll a die. You can either halve your life points, make the attack a direct attack, redirect the attack, negate it, and damage your opponent, or just destroy the opponent's monster. So a lot of crazy effects. Joey used this in the show, and we thought it would just be fun to have in here. And finally, for the traps, we've got triple dice reroll. So you activate this, and then once during the turn, you get to negate a die roll and re-roll it. Not quite as good as second coin toss because that one's continuous, but it's cool. Blind Obliteration. So this is actually probably the strongest card in the deck. You roll a 6-sided die twice, and you pop all face-up monsters with levels or ranks lower than the total roll. So usually you're going to get higher than a 4 on this, which means that you're usually going to be able to clear your opponent's board. Be careful though, if you have cards on your side of the field, they're also susceptible. So gotta be careful. Blind Destruction, a kind of similar effect. During the standby phase, you roll a die and destroy any monsters with levels equal to what you rolled. If you roll a 6, you destroy 6 or higher monsters. Again, pretty dangerous. This can pop your own stuff, so you really have to be pretty careful, and there's no way to get rid of this card once it's out in the field, so yeah. Alright, next is Skull Dice, the opposite of Graceful Dice, decreases your opponent's monster's attacks. And finally, That 6, which is a continuous trap that's sort of like second coin toss. So basically, each time a player rolls a die, you get to sort of change that result if you want to. So if they get a 1, 3, or 5, you can treat the result as a 6. You get a 2, 4, or 6, you can treat the result as a 1. That's really useful depending on the dice cards that you're using. And then finally, we have one extra deck monster, which is number 85, Crazy Box. If you want to get your hands on that rank 7 monster, Lucky Straight, you could also use that. But yeah, Crazy Box, you guys know, he has a dice effect. He can't attack, but if you roll a 4, you can actually negate its own effects and allow it to attack for that turn. But yeah, so that's basically the dice deck. And be sure to, of course, check out the coin deck as well. and check out the video where we dueled with these. Okay, that's going to be it for this one. I'll see you guys in the next video. Pass turn.